Bad Food Science. My name is Brienne. I don't know if I introduced myself last time, but now you guys know. So today, instead of getting really in-depth into the science behind one kind of food in particular, we're going to do something kind of different today, a little interesting. We're going to try making a Franken dessert. So this means we're going to take two different kinds of desserts that are popular, at least in Canada. Both are popular. And then we're going to take these two desserts and we're going to mush them together to make one unique dessert. Something that I have been unable to find online anywhere. If you can find this exact recipe anywhere online, please put it down below. And I saw some different takes on this dessert. I saw different products being used, but I didn't see this exact recipe anywhere, so I had to kind of make my own recipe here. So I kind of took like 5 different recipes from around online and things that I've made myself in my own kitchen, and I've pushed them together and we're making our own Franken dessert today. So because we're going to be doing a little bit of mad food science, we're going to need the proper equipment, which means we're going to need our gloves. We're not working with any really harsh chemicals, obviously. We're going to be eating this later. But you can never be too safe. Tiny little hands. And then, although I already have glasses on. All right, now we are prepared for some bad food science. These are really cheap. I think I got them from the dollar store, and I can't see at all through them. So we'll do that instead. So today what we're going to be making is the combination of everyone's favorite, the classic chocolate chip cookie, and we're going to be mixing that with the Canadian specialty of a butter tart. For those people who don't know what a butter tart is, I know I have some American friends who, when I first kind of introduced this idea to them, they had no clue what I was talking about. It's very similar to like a tart version of a pecan pie. It's the best way to describe it. Though it doesn't always have pecans. Typically it is full of raisins. I know that chocolate and raisins, they do go well together. I felt pecans would probably be better in this recipe. I know in our household for Christmas is when we usually have butter tarts, and we pack them full with raisins. So for these little tarts, they're like about that big, maybe that deep. They're like mostly raisins with some butter and brown sugar. That's about it. More or less all the ingredients. It's like egg, brown sugar, raisins, butter, and all in a pastry tart shell. So for those who had no idea what a butter tart was, now you do. You're well informed. So what we're going to be doing is taking those 2 recipes and we're combining them to make one Franken dessert. So the very first thing that we have to do today is make our chocolate chip cookies. Alright, so now I have a very tiny workstation here. I live in a very old house with very limited counter space at the moment. So I'm going to bring you over here to show you kind of what we're working with today. So we have 1.5 cups of flour. What we're going to be adding, we have this really cool little tool here. It has all the different kind of half teaspoons all the way to a full teaspoon. So we're going to be using a half a teaspoon of baking soda. My little fancy jar here. So we're going to be taking our baking soda. We're going to add that to our flour now. So we're just going to add in a half a teaspoon. The easiest way to get this out and have it completely level is if you have a little lip on your container. This one is, obviously we've repackaged it, but most of them on the cardboard boxes have a little bit of a lip. You fill it so that it's overflowing, and then you just scrape it along the edge, and then you have a perfectly level amount of baking soda or whatever ingredient you need. We're going to add it to our flour, and then we're going to set this aside for a second. Next thing that we have is we have 1/2 cup of butter. A lot of recipes will call for unsalted butter, and then you have to add in a pinch of salt. If you use a salted butter, then you don't have to worry about adding any extra salt to your recipes. Now this butter, as you can kind of tell, doesn't leave a mark unless I push really, really hard to get that in there. So we're going to go throw this in the microwave for about 25 seconds so that it kind of gets all nice and melty. Alright, now as you can see, it is nice and melted. If I go too far, it's all going to leave the bowl, so that's as much as I'm going to tip that for you guys. Now, I know when you read a lot of baking recipes, they will all tell you mix your dry ingredients into one bowl, mix wet ingredients to another, and then add them together. Normally what I do is I add all of my wet ingredients first, and then I just slowly add my dry ingredients to that. Today, we're gonna do things a little backwards because I've already put the flour in my bowl to show you how much we're gonna use. So, and I don't feel like doing that many dishes. I'm not gonna lie, I am a very lazy food scientist, but like I said, this is bad food science, so it's okay. So we're just gonna add our butter to our flour. So now I do know a lot of recipes will also ask for a lot more butter than a half a cup, but I find that you don't really need it, at least not for chocolate chip cookies. Just 1/2 cup is plenty of butter for what we're gonna be doing here, especially because we are adding next 1 full egg with an extra egg yolk. So if you can see in there, we have actually 2 egg yolks in this jar already prepared. A lot of cookie recipes only call for 1 egg, and as I've shown you, we're actually adding 1 egg plus 1 egg yolk. So the reason we're doing that is because the yolk is where all of the fat is in an egg. So the more you add, you're gonna increase the richness and the tenderness and all of the different flavor. So we're gonna get a much chewier chocolate chip cookie by adding this extra egg yolk. So we're gonna add those in. All right, the next thing we're gonna add in here, that's also gonna help with the chewiness of the cookie, is instead of using any white sugar, we're gonna actually add an entire 1 cup and only 1 cup, if you can see that. It's really hard to tell, but this is 1 cup of brown sugar. Brown sugar will always leave your cookies a little chewier and a lot softer than if you use white sugar. White sugar tends to harden anything that you bake. So we're gonna just put in our 1 cup packed brown sugar. Mix that up. All right, so now we're just gonna use our hands. We're wearing gloves anyway, so it's okay. You might find this slightly harder to mix than some others just because there is a lot less moisture. Most of the moisture is coming from the eggs and the butter. Oops. All right, so now the last thing that we have to add to our cookie dough, chocolate chips. A lot of recipes you will see, it'll tell you, it'll give an actual amount. A lot of them say it's about 7 ounces of chocolate chips. These ones are mini chocolate chips. I find them a lot better for this kind of recipe where we're going to be adding extra stuff on top. Leave it to your discretion how much you want to add. What I recommend is you add a little bit to your dough, mix it up, see what it looks like, how you feel about it, and then if you want more, you can add. So about 1/2 cup is what I just added. Mix that in. I think I'm going to add a little bit more. It'll probably work out to about a 3/4 cup of chocolate chips in the end. I don't want to overpower with chocolate because we're going to be adding our butter tart to the top before we cook them. What we need to do now is we have to put this in the refrigerator for at least an hour. Half an hour would probably be okay, but if you can leave it for an hour, that's best. The more you chill the dough, the less it's going to spread when you put it in the oven, because then you're cooling down your butter so it doesn't melt as quickly, and then you don't get those little hard buttery edges around the outside of your cookie. You'll actually be able to keep most of the butter contained inside of the cookie. This is why bakers like to refrigerate or cool a lot of their baked goods before they actually cook them. This is essential when you're making things like pastries. You don't want the butter to melt ever, especially if you're making puff pastries, because the minute your butter melts, you're going to lose a lot of your flavor, you're going to lose a lot of your layers within pastry. Same thing kind of goes for your cookies, so it's going to keep its shape, which is what we need. So let's get rid of these. We're going to go put this in the fridge. So what we're going to do is while we're waiting, we're going to quickly clean up our station. I'm going to pick that dough up off the floor, and then we are going to make our filling for the butter tart portion. Okay, I'm back. So we have our second bowl here. This one's just a regular bowl. I have a green one, nice and fancy. So first things first, for all you Canadians out there who actually know how to make these, butter tarts do usually contain eggs. This is what helps the filling set within the tart. But because we're going to be putting this on top of a cookie and we're not actually adding a lot of filling, we don't need to add the egg. So I'm omitting the egg for this recipe. So the first thing we need is a half a cup of butter. This one is at room temperature. You don't want it overly melted, so I'm not going to be putting this in the microwave, but you can tell it's already very soft. So we're going to add this to our bowl. We want to add in our 1 cup of brown sugar. This looks like 1 cup, but for brown sugar, it's best to pack it down. You're going to get a little bit more sweetness into whatever you're making. And if you'll notice, when we pack down our brown sugar, we now only have a 3/4 cup of brown sugar. So we're going to add a little bit more. All right, so we're going to add this to our butter and we're going to mix it in. I know this is really interesting, right? You can't see anything. I should have gotten a glass bowl so you can actually see what I'm doing. I'm just creaming my sugar and my butter together. So when you read recipes and you see it says cream, butter, and sugar together, this is what it means. It just means that you are mixing your butter and your sugar together until it leaves like a spreadable sugar mixture. You don't want any lumps. You want it to be completely combined. So the reason you don't actually want any lumps is that if you put this onto the chocolate chip cookies, or even if you're just making an actual butter tart and you put it into your tart shells and you put it in the oven and there's just a chunk of sugar, it's not actually going to melt. It will crystallize and you will just have a chunk of brown sugar in your tart. So you'll be eating it, it'll be delicious and buttery and sugary, and there'll be raisins or pecans in it, and then all of a sudden you're going to bite down onto this really hard crystallized chunk of sugar. That's never pleasant. So you want to make sure you cream this really well, completely smooth, no lumps. So once that's done, we're going to take our handy little dandy tool over here, and we're going to keep it on the 1/2 teaspoon, just like we did for our baking soda, and we're going to add in some vanilla. So apparently, because of all of the problems we have right now in the world with our climate, the vanilla beans are being affected, and there's a chance that we might run out of vanilla, which is very sad. Vanilla, the fake vanilla extract it's okay, but does not compare to real vanilla. I'm a purist. All right, mix that in. Okay, so we're on our final step. So the last thing we're going to add in is our 1/2 cup of pecans. These ones are already pre-chopped for me, so I don't have to worry about doing that. There are some larger chunks in here. Depending on who you are, you might like them this big. I find them a little too large, so I'm just going to crack that as I do that. I like the tinier pieces. I find them easier and more manageable. That's my own personal preference, though. You can make them as big as you want. If you want to try this with raisins, feel free. Again, I would just do the 1/2 cup of raisins instead of going overboard with that. I've also seen it that you could add in walnuts instead if you prefer that. I have somebody who's allergic to walnuts in our household, so we're going to stick with our pecans. All right. We are completely mixed here. It doesn't maybe look all that appetizing, I don't know. But it's just butter, brown sugar, a little bit of vanilla, and then you have your chopped pecans in here. Like I said, you could do raisins if you really want, or you could change it up and do some walnuts. Nuts, I think, would be a better option with the chocolate chip cookie dough. We have to wait now for our dough to cool. We want this to stay at room temperature. My house is very cold. It is a very old house, about 120 years old or so. So if I leave this on the counter, trust me, it is not melting. It is not going anywhere. It's going to stay in this form. In fact, we had a pumpkin once that we bought like beginning of October for Halloween and never carved it. We just never got around to it, and it sat on our dining room table until mid-December before we threw it out. And it did not decompose at all. It was still fully intact. It was as if we had shellacked it. It did not go anywhere. It was very bright orange when we threw it away. My house is cold. If you have a normal house, however, and you actually have heat, if you think your butter will melt on you while you're waiting for your cookies, you can either do one of two things. You can either wait to make this, because as you can tell, this did not take me very long. This was maybe 10 minutes tops, like if you had to go get the ingredients from your cupboard. So you could wait until the end of that hour, chill for the last 10 minutes, make this up, and then take the dough out of the fridge and then keep going. Or if you want to do it in this order and just get it kind of done and out of the way, you could throw this in your fridge for half an hour, and then I would pull it out for the last half hour while your cookies are finishing chilling. That way this will come back up to room temperature so that you can actually use it for the cookies. So it's completely up to you. Both options are viable. Doesn't really matter. For me, I'm just going to set this off to the side on the counter. And then while we wait, we'll put things away and do dishes. Yay. Go me. Exciting. I put my hair back to wash the dishes. You probably should put your hair back when you're cooking for other people. I'm cooking this for just myself and for the sheer purpose of finding out if this is even going to work, because I have no idea what it's going to taste like in the end. We're going to find out together. But if I was going to make this for a whole bunch of other people that weren't family members or myself, then obviously I would have my hair pulled back the entire time. In fact, I should probably do that next time.
It's like murder, she wrote. Once I get you out the clothes, weekend baby, I'm about to have me some fun.
I look like I should be in a shop working on wood. I would not be good at working on wood with these. I don't know if you can, let's see if I can show what it looks like through these. These are crap. They're terrible. Terrible. Look at this. Ooh. Isn't that horrible? Oh wait, what is this? Alright, I feel like a right idiot right now. Like, okay. Ready? Oh, it's a film! Because they're new. And I didn't take off the plastic film. Alright, let's see what that looks like now. Can I see out of them? A little better. They're still really like, they're really cheap still. I mean, they're better than nothing if you're working in a garage and actually like chopping up wood or sanding. These would be great for that, but there's the visibility is not so great still. Let's see. Can you tell? Oh, there's this already a fingerprint. We're so close now. It's only like 10 minutes left before I have to take them out of the fridge. That's exciting. So, soon. Before we pull our cookie dough out of the fridge, there's a couple things that we need to do first. We have taken out a cookie tray. We got that ready. We're going to bring this back over to our workspace with us when we go back. But I have a piece of parchment paper on top. This way it's not going to stick to the pan. And we have to set our oven. So we're going to set this for 375. Alright, now that's going to preheat. What we need to do is we need to make our cookies. If you want even amounts of cookie, you can use an ice cream scoop to get out the right amount of dough. Otherwise, you can just eyeball it. So we're going to make some circles first, about a golf ball size. So we're going to do that until our tray is full. Now we have all of our cookie balls ready. We need to make a little divot so that we can actually put our butter tart mixture on the top. Is we're going to take a shot glass and we're just going to push it into our cookie. So what I'm doing is, let's see if I can show you guys. Alright, so I've got my cookie. I'm taking my shot glass. I'm going to push it into the center of the cookie and I kind of twirl it around. And it leaves a nice little divot in the center. And then you still have that nice cookie shape though. So we're going to do that with all of these. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is we're going to add in our filling. So we have our butter tart filling here. And we're just going to add a little bit of this on each cookie. We're now going to put these in the oven for approximately 8 to 9 minutes. Put them in for the 8 minutes. And around the 4.5 minute mark, we're going to just give them a check and see how they're doing. So those went into the oven, so now we just have to wait. Like I said, around the 4.5 minute mark, we're going to give them a quick check. We'll see how they're doing. Maybe we'll be able to determine if they're going to need that extra minute or not, or if they're even working at all. So we're coming towards the end when the cookies should be ready, so I'm going to go give them a check, see what they look like. those look pretty good. I'm kind of surprised the butter has stayed in them pretty well. If the 8 to 9 minutes is not enough, you might end up cooking them for as long as 12 minutes. Every recipe is different. They all have different times for them. What you want to make sure is that it's like a golden brown color, because when it's golden brown, then you know that they're completely cooked. There we go. How awesome does that look? At least the tops look great. So we're going to let them cool in the pan for about a minute. We're going to have to cut them up a little because they did spread a lot. Let's place our cookies on the cooling rack. Now that they're cut up and they're a little harder, you can actually move them. Because there's a lot of butter in them, they're very soft. Very, very soft cookies. Looking back on this now and like taking these off the tray, I would have actually made the cookies a lot smaller so that they'd be easier to take off. They're really, really, really chewy and kind of overly buttery because of the butter mixture. They're very sweet. I don't know what I expected. Obviously they're going to be sweet. It's a chocolate chip cookie with extra butter and sugar. Outside they're nice and greasy. Very, very buttery. I cut back the amount of butter I put in my cookie recipe. It originally called for 3/4 of a cup, and I actually only put 1/2 cup of butter in. I think I would go as far as to cut it back even further than that. 1/4 cup might not be quite enough to like mix everything together, but I think that you could get away with 1/3 cup of butter instead, because we're adding butter for the butter tart mixture on the top. I feel like it might not be as greasy if we remove some of the butter from the actual cookie recipe. So I guess depending on who you are, you might enjoy this. Like I said, I would probably use a lot less butter in the cookie recipe itself, just because there's so much butter that we're adding from the butter tart recipe. I would also do these like half the size, because they're like monster cookies. So yeah, I don't know. I think these are both a hit and a miss. They are extremely sweet. If you have a sweet tooth, these would probably be perfect for you. But yeah, they're very buttery. But if you reduce the amount of butter, it could probably work. Hard to say. So yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of torn. I mean, they worked. They did work. We can say that. We have cookies. They baked. The cookie tastes great. It's very sweet. It's very buttery. A little too greasy and sweet for me. Like I said before, I would cut the butter down to 1/3 cup within the actual cookie recipe, even if I was just making the cookies on their own. And I would make them a lot smaller. I wouldn't do them this large again. You can use your own cookie recipe and change it up and see what happens. I know that these are good, supposed to be good with like a sugar cookie base as well, so changing it away from that chocolate chip. I think the chocolate chip does work though with the pecan. I think in general these could be very good, but they are very sweet. So keep that in mind if it's something that you're thinking about doing. If you're not a huge fan of really, really sweet things, these are probably not for you. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you tried them, how they turned out for you, what you thought of them if you tried them, and leave a comment down below. If you enjoy this video or you want to see more videos kind of like this where we make different Franken desserts, then like the video, subscribe, and let me know what you guys want to see next. Thanks for joining in, and I'll see you guys next time.